Here. So, you know, I think first, before I sort of dive in here, I do want to thank Bruce and Trent and Masha and Carly and all the people who put this thing on. This is hard to do, and it's really great. And how honored do I feel to be convening with you all, flying in through the apocalyptic weather event yesterday. So glad to be here. I do have grave concerns. I have grave concerns having sat here for the day and watched. And I say this as an absolute, you know, blockchain true believer for a really, really long time. But I will tell you a story. So in the 1960s, there were a bunch of guys that would sit around Midtown Manhattan, and they would watch and eat their, you know, brisket or whatever, and watch as shows on Broadway would kind of rise and fall. And they made this sort of anecdotal observation that certain shows, after they sort of passed a threshold, would run forever, right? And this eventually, and then some that didn't make that point would die out, right? And they didn't know exactly where that line was, but this sort of got codified as something called the Lindy effect. And then our man Nassim Taleb, you know, blew this out in the book Antifragile. And I'm convinced, right, for what it's worth, that blockchain technology generally has become anti-fragile, right? So if you look at the Bitcoin blockchain, or if you look at Ethereum or whatever, it's survived so many attacks and survived, right? So its resiliency grows. And I mean, look, I mean, you know, this is what you do if you want to write a bestseller. You come with some cliche and blow a book around it. Essentially, anti-fragile is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So all the code exploitations have made these things stronger. However, blockchain and music is deeply, deeply, deeply fragile, in my estimation. I think we are one sort of big failure away from people just sort of abandoning it. And that's sort of the thread here that I'm going to talk about here. Let's see if I can get this going. So, yeah, so I'm going to talk about sort of where things are. And generally, I want to talk about why music and blockchain is deeply anti-fragile, right? It's very fragile right now, and what we need to do. And that's really to make it more fragile and make it more anti-fragile. And that's really the state of why we've started this DMS thing. So, the music industry is full of really bad people, right? It started that way. It started as a deeply racist, unethical business model, right? Full of information asymmetries in which artists' rights were systematically and very racially driven, exploited from them, and it has never really changed, okay? I want to get something out of the way real quick, because I'll forget if I don't. All of the people that are trying to do music blockchain businesses, that are trying to get buy-in from major labels or publishers or other institutions, stop. Stop. I'm telling you, stop. For your own good, stop. There has never been a technology that the music industry has not fought tooth and nail. Here is what is happening for you entrepreneurs that are trying to get a deal with Universal Records or what have you. They will listen to you. They will talk to you. They will take your money. They will give you lip service. They will set up POCs or experiments, and then they will systematically make sure they fail. 100%. That's what they're doing, okay? No, it's not funny. That's what they're doing, right? Because then they can say, you see, this technology doesn't work. If you don't believe me, here's what Apple's doing. Apple is going to legislate and lobby everything under the sun to raise the statutory rates for writers. And everyone's going to go, hooray, Apple, you're good. They're doing that so that will price every other competitor out, right? That's what's going on. Mo Austin, the chairman of Warner Music Group, which was the friendly technology-facing label a million years ago, said, I will die before any of my music is put on a CD. I will die, right? That's their bias. So they are not interested in this type of technology because they're not going to cut the branch of the tree upon which they sit, right? And so you get all of these fractured ecosystems. And there have been epic failures. The GRD, I don't know what the number was, tens of millions of dollars to do nothing, right? And there's just all of this lip service and all of this talk. And now all these people saying, oh, ASCAP and BMI are going to do a blockchain experiment together. Yeah, you know why? So they can say it didn't work, right? It's fragile. It's fragile. It doesn't work, right? And the entrepreneurs in the space are fucking it up, right? Because blockchain technology, why not? Throw it at music, right? That's the easiest, best thing. Let's throw it at music. Music's hard, right? Music is a non-binary thing. We're asking too much of the technology, and that's the overwhelming wash that keeps coming over me when I listen to everything. The overwhelming theme is we are not being patient enough with the technology. I'm an aspirational dude. I want nothing more than for technology to solve everything, right? You know, was it Clark's Law? Sufficient technology is indistinguishable from magic. You know when we know blockchain has really arrived? When we stop saying the fucking word blockchain, right? We're asking too much of it. And we're asking too much of it because it's one thing for music industry, for industries that are super binary, right? Ask Peter Thiel how blockchain's working for him in Palantir. Really well. But you know what Peter Thiel's not doing? Talking at motherfucking conferences, right? He's building stuff. Ask Intel, one of my clients, who's working in blockchain all the time. These people are using it, but they're using it to go, we can solve these problems right now. And they're building on it, and they're not asking too much of the technology. The other thing about music is that copyright law with music is complex at inception. Unlike other, and it's good that we had 2 lawyers at the end, that's the way to end any party. Copyright law, as it applies to music, is more complex than anything else, because immediately you have 2 copyrights. The person that wrote the song and the person that recorded the song. Right away. Throw a couple singles. If you're Beyonce, you know how many writers there are on single ladies? No shit, it's like 37, right? And then you stir in publishers and samples and everything else. Ah yes, a smart contract will resolve that easily, right? No it won't. No it won't, right? And then, the thing that kills me is this fundamental misunderstanding of the music business. You have to assume evil. You have to. Right? Don't assume good, assume evil. And then, everybody's like, okay, well, we won't deal with the music. We'll just stand up some music thing with a bunch of artists that nobody's ever heard of and wonder why the fuck nobody comes to our thing. Right? Because they don't understand network effect. And then what happens? And then everybody says, oh, well, I won't mention names. Oh, so this company did it. And you know how many albums or songs or whatever they sold on the blockchain? 19. Right? Hooray! Blockchain. Right? I forgot a point, my favorite. Well, so there was another, I don't know how to go backwards, but there was another point at the bottom there that said skeuomorphic thinking, right? Drives me fucking nuts, right? All the time. There we go. So the bottom. So it's what's happening in VR. Everyone's like, okay, VR, I know what we should do. Let's make you feel like you're on stage playing with the band, right? You know who wants to do that? Nobody, right? Nobody wants to do that. And then people are like, oh, VR will never work. No! Why would you take technology that can make you fucking fly around and be like you're on drugs and instead make you playing with Jimmy Page that nobody wants to do, right? Make people fly around. It's like when Apple used to have the Apple Notes thing, right? That had lines. Why in God's name do you need lines when you're typing, right? Your word's gonna go off this, right? So what we're trying to do, we're trying to take each one of those problems and address it slightly differently. So I gotta throw some music business jargon at you, right? A controlled composition. All that means is a song that one person wrote and one person performed, right? I am Bob Dylan. Sadly, I'm not. I am Bob Dylan. I wrote Masters of War. You should leave immediately and listen to that song. It will help you understand the world, right? I write Masters of War and I perform it. There's one rights holder there. There's not 14. That makes it imminently licensable. It makes it imminently licensable by machines going, hey Bob, I would like to put Masters of War in my film, in my sample, whatever. And Bob can say yes or no. That's binary. Smart contracts can do that. If it's, hey Bob, I would like to put this song in, and then Bob has to ask Beyonce, who has to ask Kanye, who has to ask Universal Records, it's not going to happen. Ever, maybe. Maybe Moore's Law will get us there. I don't know, right? So, then you get this idea, okay, fine. So we got a bunch of controlled compositions, but for the most part, those are artists that nobody gives a shit about, right? Sad, right? But we start from the premise of, look, artists, because you know what artists like? right? They like two things. They like affirmation, they're like somebody knocking them on the head and going, you're great. And then eventually, and that's one, and then two, they like money. It's those two things, right? Maybe that's humans, right? And so we say, all right, artists, you get to be part of this cool ass thing, and if you put your works up there, this is really disconcerting. Can you guys do your thing and then get out of my way? You're not going to leave, are you, right? To film them, they are much more attractive than I am. So, you're not going to do it, are you? Just because So we say to the artists, right? We say to the artists, we'll give you some tokens and you get to be part of this cool ass thing if you put your what? Controlled compositions up there. Now, are all artists going to do that? No, because artists wouldn't know a copyright if it hit them over the head, even though it's their asset. So what else do we do? You know, people go to Wikipedia and correct shit, right? Why? I don't know. They seem to like doing that. So there are nerds out there, and everyone's like, oh, but George, we need people that were in the studio when this band was recorded. They're the only ones. Horse shit. I know more about what REM was recorded in 1989 than REM does. I promise you, because I've talked to them about it, right? There are super fans out there that know this stuff. Would I nerd out and fix the stuff? Of course I would. Would I nerd out harder if I got some tokens? Sure. Of course I would, right? So we incent them that way. Maybe those tokens are valueless. Maybe they become this elusive nest egg that people have, right? On the other side of the market, you got to get buyers. And this is where most of these things fall down. You can compel a bunch of artists to put their rights on a database. You can, right? If you make them jump through a hoop. And if you're looking for sort of prima facie evidence, there's an organization in the United States called Sound Exchange. The only way you can get your money from Sound Exchange is to prove that you were actually the performer of the work. And every year, they get more people doing it. There is a template for this. But we need the buy side. So how do you coordinate the buy side? So I had the privilege of living and working in New Orleans for a while. And New Orleans desperately needed film studios, people to come and make movies there. Well, how did they encourage this? Tax credits, right? So I want to go to film studios, people that want samples, app developers. The number of times in my so-called career that I've advised some app company that wants to build something for music that it's not going to happen. You can't get a data set. Oh, well, George, we'll just go to Universal Records. Okay, right? They'll take your money and or sue you at the same time often, right? So I want these app developers. I have been killing myself with a motherfucking company that is using music to help people with Alzheimer's, right? That's a virtuous thing. You know what they can't get? The labels to give them licenses. To help Alzheimer's, right? So I want these app developers to come to this market. How am I going to get them to do it? I'll give you some credit, some tokens to come there, and then if you use it, so you buy $1,000 worth of music using fiat currency or something, guess what you're going to get in return? $1,000 worth of tokens. George tokens, or whatever we call this thing, right? Not George tokens, right? And then, maybe those tokens maybe they go up. Maybe you sit on, maybe you speculate, or maybe you buy more shit with them, right? And then you get liquidity. Finally, we get liquidity. And then, you know how this happens. So I told you a story about Mo Austin, right? The Warner Music Group. No CDs. Over my dead body will there ever be CDs. So at the time, I was running a little label called Rykodisc, right? You know what we were? The world's first CD-only label. At the time, record label contracts had a clause in them that said that the labels had the rights to the vinyl and cassette. You know what they didn't have the rights to? Digital. So we went to David Bowie and Frank Zappa and a bunch of others artists and said, you want us to try putting some of your crap out on CD? And they said yes. And we sold 1 million Changes Bowie records in like a month, right? And then, because there were a lot of questions, we hear about blockchain and scalability and the expenses and everything else. You know what was expensive 1 million years ago? Taking the sum total of analog music and digitizing it. Imagine if we just said to ourselves, we got this cool new technology, it's called a CD. In order to utilize it, what we're going to have to do is find all those vinyl records, all that tape, all that other shit, and we're going to have to digitize it. It'll cost, I don't know, $5–10 billion. Hooray, right? There's no one who would have done that. You know what made them do it? They said, well, wait a second, it might cost us $50, $100, or whatever. To do this, we'll make 51 or 101 CDs, right? Onboarding. So, the desired outcome, a database of machine-readable works that are licensable with no intermediary or little to no transaction costs. I've been tilting at this windmill forever. Forever. 19 years old, starting a little record label, right? I want more artists to build sustainable careers on their own terms. That's all I got. I'm entirely unemployable if that's not evident, right? That's the only thing I got, right? So we build this, then we don't want one UI at the top of the stack. Who the fuck cares? Lots of UIs. It's the substrate that matters, right? Then you get all these companies that used to be completely barred from actually entering the market, like everyone, right? Unless you are an incumbent, get to actually use this. As the tech grows and evolves, I don't know, we go from controlled compositions maybe to songs that have 2 writers. You could do that, right? And over time, it gets better and better. Okay, I do want to say one thing, and obviously I'm hyper-caffeinated, right? This horseshit about minimum viable data has to stop, right? Data standards follow transactions, not the other way around. You don't know what data people need. You don't know. It's like when you're building like a college and you got all these buildings around you, you don't pave the sidewalk. You let people walk, and then you pave over where they walked. So we spend all this time fighting about ISRC and ISWC. You don't know. What will eventually solve that is the people that get licensed the most, and then the standards evolve around it, right? The innovator's dilemma, tug, this moment where it becomes too late for the majors to go, and that's going to be upward pressure from artists. Eventually, some of these artists are going to go, I want my music there. Universal? And Universal is going to go, wait a second, if this jackass idiot artist who can't figure anything out about money actually thinks they're going to make money on it, maybe we should pay attention to it. You know why I think that? Because that's what they did with the piano roll, the music box, cassette, vinyl, CDs, and downloads. Right? And then revenue streams emerge. I want a free market. I want to get rid of this compulsory license structure where the government is somehow responsible for telling me as a songwriter what I can price my work at. What other industry does that exist in? Right? I want measuring, not modeling. I don't want people guessing about when my songs get played. And we have all that technology. And it's led by values. We've got a diverse-ish, we need women, group of advisors, right? We are a nonprofit, and as Greg in his brilliant talk was saying, we want to go away. We want a sunset, right? Where are we? We're trying to fight through all this stuff that I'm talking about. I don't see it as that hard. Some of my colleagues keep trying to make it hard because they're coders, right? And then I want to seed the interest among the indie artists and the labels and the development community. That's what I got.
That's amazing, eye-openers. Anyone has a question for George?
Good.
How do you feel about record labels?
Peter, that's you? There's one in the back.
I ran a record label. I actually feel like record labels are what they are. You just have to, it's the devil you know. You just have to know it, unfortunately. I'll tell you a quick story. Do I have another minute? Yeah. So I will stand in front of my students, hundreds of songwriters at Berklee or whatever, and I'll say, so do you guys believe that record labels are really going to give you services that you largely and mostly couldn't do yourself? And they say, no. And I say, do you really believe that you're going to get a fair contract from a record label? And they say, of course not. I say, if Universal Records walked into this room right now and said they would sign you, how many of you would sign the deal? You know why? Because you're an artist. You start playing your music when you're 9 or 10 years old. You're sort of ostracized, you fight, you work, you toil, you struggle. That 1 second of being able to say, hey mom, it was all worthwhile. I'm a Universal recording artist, is worth it all. And I get it. and the record labels get it. And so when you wonder why the record labels never change, why would they?
Does that answer your question that you have?
I wouldn't.
My question is more or less, is it possible to build some kind of open version of Spotify based on your platform?
I don't know. Maybe. I want to facilitate a sandbox for people to build all sorts of stuff. I don't really feel the need to reinvent Spotify. I'd actually much rather have somebody invent something badass, because Spotify's not.
Because I have something in my mind, like for example, for me as a listener, I would like to change, for example, the news provider, for example. Some kind of company could use the data you have in your database in a blockchain and provide me the music feed. For example, if this company, let's say, meet my requirements about the music I like to listen, I choose one. If this one...
Yeah, I get it. 1,000%. So you're here, right? You're clearly smart, brilliant, whatever. You're probably either a coder or know somebody. So in my little dream, right, we would have a sandbox that you could build that thing and get a data set to try it with. Somebody earlier said, we can't do lightweight MVPs. A lot of this is that. It's almost impossible to do a lightweight MVP in the music business because you can't get a data set. I don't know if your idea is a good idea or a bad idea, right? It's an idea. You should test it. You can't right now. Hopefully, if we do this, you could.
Also, all I need is the open data set, and that's all.
Yeah, right.
All right.